So has India got this right when it has its neutrality hurt democracy? Should Indian policy be based on principles? Will ignoring Putin's war embolden dictators, or is India right in abstaining from the United Nations? Is that in India's national interest? Joining me now is Nirupama Rao, former Foreign Secretary, who's also been, remember, Ambassador to China and the United States. Appreciate your joining us, ma'am. What's your sense? Is India walking this diplomatic tightrope at the moment, or should we be taking a stand?
Well, I think that question is best answered by the government, Rajdeep. But as I see it from here, our vote of abstention for the third time seems to suggest that we have taken a very cautious, a very deliberately step-by-step approach to this whole crisis. But seen in absolute terms, what should we say about Russia's invasion of Ukraine? That is the question before all of us. You may well argue that the principles of conscience and the values that we uphold as a democracy really do not come to apply in times of crisis such as these. That may well be the case, but as I see it, the invasion by Russia of Ukraine is a violation of the principles of the UN Charter, is a violation of the principles of international humanitarian law. And as was pointed out by one of the analysts today, it's also a violation of the 2004 Budapest Memorandum, by which Russia agreed to recognize Ukraine's sovereignty and independence in exchange for Ukraine giving up its nuclear weapons.
No, what you're suggesting, that's interesting. You're saying we should be affirming these principles, that territorial integrity and sovereignty is inviolable. Is that what you're saying? Should we be much stronger in the statements that we are making, or do you believe that that would risk alienating Russia, which is seen as an all-weather ally?
Well, it's not as if we haven't spoken our mind on previous occasions. Let's recollect or recall the circumstances surrounding the NATO attack on Yugoslavia in 1999, when our permanent representative to the United Nations at that time spoke out very strongly condemning the NATO action. It was a similar case, the NATO had decided to take out Milosevic. The attacks had commenced, and India spoke out very strongly at that time. So I think as a country that aspires to be a leading power, that has all the legitimate reasons to seek big power status, we should be prepared to state our minds and to adhere by the principles that we all seek to uphold where international law is concerned and where the global order is concerned. Because once that order is upended, it then becomes the law of the jungle.
But there will be those
And by saying that, I don't deny the fact that the Western countries are no less culpable in all this. When you look at the history of what has happened vis-a-vis Ukraine and the post-Cold War, post-collapse of the Soviet Union, over the years, you've had this kind of mission creep of NATO in Eastern Europe. And gradually, as Russia's powers have grown, as it has sought to consolidate its reach in the world, its discomfort and its absolute inability to accept this turn of circumstances has become more and more evident. So from both sides, I think you have culpability. But where does that leave us as a country? India, I think, has always upheld the morality of the global order, moral principles. We are in many ways the conscience keepers. We have no dog in the fight from either side, which makes it all the more rational on our part and all the more necessary to speak out, saying that all, proportionality is now lost as far as the situation is concerned. And Ukraine, an independent sovereign country, has been caught in the middle with great suffering brought on its population, and also all the people that are caught in this crossfire, including our innocent students.
But ma'am, there'll be those who will say that if we take this strong stand that you're now advocating against Russia, or at least make a strong statement, we'll isolate Russia, push it closer to the embrace of China, and a Russia-China axis is not in India's strategic interest. This is not our war. Why should we be seen to take sides?
It certainly is not our war, Rajdeep. And even if we continue to abstain, I think we should be prepared while explaining our vote to speak our mind, to speak out and say what we are opposed to and how these circumstances have come to pass, and seek a more detailed discussion on these matters. Because what is the security architecture that we are now going to see established in Europe? Will we ever see that? Are we just staring over the precipice? This affects all of us.
No, but will it take the Russians closer into the Chinese embrace? Will we lose out on our prime defense partner, which is Russia?
I don't believe it will happen like that. Things don't happen in that sort of mechanical manner in global politics. And Russia needs us as much as we need Russia. So I don't think we should have those doomsday scenarios stifling our capacity to think in these circumstances.
One final question. You're a bit of an outlier on this, because all the other foreign secretaries I've been speaking to, or former foreign secretaries, have all said, don't take sides, be very cautious. What is morality in politics? This is about real politics. You're calling for a moral position, Nirupama Rao.
Well, I'm calling for a principled position, Rajdeep. A principled position that upholds the values that India has stood for. And I'm not saying that we should, I'm not saying that we are opposing Russia, we are opposing Russia's actions in this context, but referencing it to the context in which this has taken place. So India as a country should not be afraid to speak out if we have aspirations to be a leading power. Otherwise, how are we going to weigh in on the situation? Are we going to make a difference? Right now, I don't believe we're able to make that difference.
Right. I think you've spoken your mind, and I think you've given us a sense of a moral position that you believe is important if we want to have a voice on the global stage. Nirupama Rao, we'll get you back again, hopefully, as this conflict continues. But I appreciate your taking the time off and giving us where you believe India should stand on this. Thanks very much for joining me on the news today.